Today's guest speech is entitled Cultivating Peace and Resolving Conflict Amid Chaos and Divisiveness. Our speaker today is attorney Eva DeFranco. Eva has been a divorce mediator and collaborative divorce practitioner for decades. She's co-founder of the Connecticut Mediation Training Group, and she conducts the 40-hour basic mediation training in Connecticut for lawyers, mental health professionals, and divorce financial planners. Eva is past president and current board member of the Connecticut Council for Non-Adversarial Divorce. She's a certified advanced practitioner, has been recognized with the Martindale-Hubbell AV preeminent rating, as well as super lawyers. Eva is an avid vegetable gardener, potter, hiker, and golfer. Lives with her husband and golden retriever in Sherman, Connecticut. And most importantly to me, she was my best friend in law school. So please welcome to Justice Southbury, attorney Eva DeFranco.
Woo! Yeah. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. If I walk away from it or you can't hear, just let me know. First, I want to say that I'm really proud of Rick. When we were in law school drinking margaritas, only one because we couldn't afford any more. You know, it was hard to see what we would turn out to be. But I got to say, I'm so proud of Rick, and I'm so proud of what he's done here. You know, what I like about Justice Southbury is that the mission is to be kind and fair to all people. And, you know, we're just living in crazy times. We don't hear that pretty much ever these days. And that affects us. I mean, I think it affects us all in pretty insidious ways, both that we recognize and sometimes that we don't recognize. I think it has an effect on our mental and spiritual and even physical self. And, you know, the future is cloudy, right? I don't think any of us really know what's going to happen, but I believe that we need to start talking to each other. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how power is going to change or how this divisiveness is going to play out. But it really seems to me that if we don't start talking person by person, act by act, then we really do have no hope. So today I'd like to talk about, thank you. I'd like to talk about conflict, positive conflict and negative conflict. And don't get me wrong, I think there are values that we all hold dear that are worth fighting for. And I think we have to stay out here and do our part and, you know, advocate for those values. I've been a divorce lawyer, as Rick said, for about 40 years, just shy of 40 years. And for the most part, I've worked with couples that are facing divorce. So these are people who are living in really difficult spaces. They've objectified their partners, who they once loved. They're in this spiral of being triggered by their partners and spouses. They are not able to get out of themselves, and it just becomes a blame game, right? So they've lost the humanity of each other, and they're constantly objectifying each other. They feel betrayed. Many have been betrayed. They feel disempowered. They don't feel confident. So it's in this completely disempowered state where they come to me as a mediator, and I need to work with them and help them try to resolve their conflict in a positive light by talking to each other and agreeing with each other In mediation, we don't tell people what to do. They have to find their own agreements. So what I've seen gives me a lot of hope in that area, because I have seen people get out of their negativity space and be a little generous with their spouse, and also be able to connect with them on a human level. And that's really remarkable when you think about it. To be in such a toxic relationship and come out of it with an agreement that's in the best interest of their family. So, and what I've seen is, people basically being generous, and that generosity can open up the other partner so that the two of them are on a completely different footing. I've seen people be vulnerable, and that vulnerability opens the other person up so that they can have some positive connection. I've seen people light up. I've seen something light up in their eyes when they realize that they can talk to their spouse and come up with something that's in the best interests of their families, in spite of having been betrayed and being in this trigger of hate and disempowerment. So while we can't expect everybody to come to the table and to talk reasonably and rationally, and while we can't expect everybody to be transformed from disempowerment and negative conflict to empowerment and positive conflict, I think it's worth a try, and I think it's worth a try with everybody. What we've learned about neuroscience in the last 10, 15 years really helps explain this idea of negative conflict. Our evolutionary conditioning, and most of you probably know this, right? Our evolutionary conditioning is tribal. This was our survival brain. Others are bad, we're good. Our limbic and reptilian brain activates the default, right? Fight, flight, freeze. We all know that. See a T-Rex, run, right? Think you're going to die, freeze. Somebody's threatening limited tribal resources, fight, right? That's in our DNA. So that's part of being human. So when we're in conflict with each other, at least initially, what happens is we feel threatened, and the back lower part of our brain reacts, okay, in this fight, flight, freeze, whatever defaults we happen to have. So someone says something, it's a trigger, limbic hijack, default to your fight, flight, or freeze. And what you get is a completely downward spiral, trigger, completely unproductive. Sorry. I should have used your clipboard.
It's a process. We've all learned through many rough routes.
Yeah. So the other person becomes the enemy, the bad other, and we only see negativity. Transformative mediation theory is something that I've studied a lot in my tenure as a divorce mediator. And the theory is that people in conflict tend to experience this sense of weakness and self-absorption. And neuroscience bears that out. It also recognizes that people have the ability to rebound and recover from that, to move back to their innate sense of empowerment and openness to another, right? And we know that. We feel it. You get in a car accident, you feel threatened, all kinds of negative stuff comes up, and within 5 minutes, we're probably back to our normal self. So we see this daily happen in life. And once we're in a place where we're not triggered, we move from closed to open, self-absorbed to confident, demonizing to humanizing. At this point, we can move from negative conflict to positive interaction. And I feel like many of us today, with everything going on around us, are in this heightened state of anxiety where we're constantly triggered by stuff. So the good news is, as of 10,000 years ago, our brains have changed and evolved, and our prefrontal cortex has evolved to be able to adopt the messages from our reptilian brain and reality check them. So, and it's the prefrontal cortex where most of us live most of the time and can come back to. The evolutionary theory here is that competition is that nurturing and compassion is more important than competition. And I think that makes sense given the world we live in. I mean, climate change is just one example, right? If we don't start getting together as a world on climate change, there is no hope. So, do any of you listen to Tara Brach at all? No? She's amazing, right? She's this clinical psychologist who studied Eastern religion. She identifies as Buddhist, and she has this amazing podcast. But she talks most about spiritual evolution and being able to connect with people in a positive way. But she says it's no longer survival of the fittest, it's survival of the nurtured. And I think we see that. I think we see that the people that are happiest today, that are doing well in today's difficult environment, have solid, nurturing, supportive relationships. I mean, we all need connection. We all need to feel cared for. I gotta just tell you about, I saw these 2 reels on Instagram in the last, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks. One made me sob, right? So I'm going to tell you about it. It was this guy who was in his car, had just gotten out of a CVS, and he was sobbing. And he said something just happened. So I tried to find it again. Maybe you guys can find it, but it was just so remarkable. It just stayed with me. So he was in the CVS in line for a prescription for his daughter who was really sick, had some major disease happening. And a guy in a MAGA hat came over, because he had a hat and it said liberal on it. So a guy in a MAGA hat, he said, came over, and the guy said to him, looked him in the eye and said, "You libtards are ruining our country." And the guy just started sobbing. The guy with the liberal hat just started sobbing and said, whoever was listening, or to no one, said, "My wife just died 6 months ago, and my daughter is really sick, and I'm just trying to take care of her." And the guy in the MAGA hat started apologizing profusely, started tearing up, and repeatedly asked him if he could do anything for the guy, or at least pay for his prescriptions, right? And the liberal guy, the guy with the liberal hat, saw the guy walk out and put his MAGA hat in the trash, right? So then I saw, just maybe, a few days ago, another guy who was in his car recounting that something major had just happened to him, and this big burly guy was sobbing and basically said that, "I was just in the store and I couldn't find what I was looking for. So I asked somebody who worked there, and she said, "Honey, I'll take you right over to that." Escorted the guy over to what he was looking for, looked him in the eye and said, "There you go. Have a great day. Everything's going to be okay." The guy walked out to his car, started sobbing. Why? What's going on here? Right? So, let me just get to where I was here. So, this is the same thing that happens to some of the couples that I work with in the divorce field. One party softens by being vulnerable or kind or generous, or shows the other party that they're really listening to them, and the other party responds by opening up. So it's about seeing the humanity in all of us. That's really what it's about, right? So in conflict, that's what turns our hard hearts and our shells that we use for protection to a softer sense of opening. And that's the way we turn negative conflict into positive conflict, and we can start listening to each other. There's a little book that I wish everybody on earth would read. It's called The Anatomy of Peace, The Heart of Conflict. And it's a quick read. It's told as a fable for an Arab and a Jew who are running a wilderness camp for kids that are in trouble. And the book takes place at an orientation at this camp. You guys still hear me? Okay, I'll let Jeremy just tell me where to go. But anyway, I'll continue. So basically, the book takes place auspiciously. The camp counselors are orienting these parents on what to do or what their kids are going to be doing at the camp. But really what's happening is the camp counselors are uncovering how these heartbroken parents are treating their children because they are so disappointed. So the book focuses really on how we approach others. What I was just talking about. Do we see people, or do they see their children for who they are, or do they see them as objects and barriers to what these parents want their kids to be? So hate and contempt breed hate and contempt pretty much every time, and love and respect breed love and respect, with very few exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions. I think it is that simple. The hard part is the work and the self-reflection and the internal management to get us to a place where we can approach others as fellow humans and not objects of contempt. In order to cultivate peace in the world, you have to first cultivate peace in our hearts. It's not easy. I think it takes patience and kindness to ourselves. There's a really poignant story in this book that I'm talking about that I'll tell you about. Imagine you were raised to fear and hate left-handed people because 2,000 years ago, a group of left-handed people attacked your right-handed family. One day you notice a guy coming out of a store that sells left-handed goods. And as he's in the middle of this busy highway, he trips, falls down, is lying in the middle of the road, obviously hurt. Everything he's bought is all over the road. So the theory here is you can have a heart at war or you can have a heart at peace. If you have a heart at war, you're going to ignore the guy in the road and walk away. If you have a heart at peace, you're going to help the guy. If you have a heart at war and you ignore the guy, you're going to walk away, right? And you're going to betray yourself. If you believe, as I do, that we're all basically good, that we all have compassion, that we're all made of the same stuff. And if we betray another person, we're betraying a part of ourselves. I think that's true. What happens when we betray ourselves? We start justifying, right? To make ourselves feel better. We start, putting other people down. We start justifying reasons why we did something we really can't live with in ourselves. So, that's what's happening. I think we're seeing people we don't disagree with, and they're saying, and they're not disagreeing with us, and you're inferior, and we're just objectifying everybody. And it's that kind of mindset that perpetuates the hate that we're seeing today. So it's internal work that is going to change things. So the book posits, if your heart's at war, you don't help, you betray yourself, and get out of this natural alignment instead of being true to yourself. Outward wars start with inward wars, and war and peace start in the human heart. Whether your heart is open or whether your heart is closed, I think has global implications at this point. So I'm going to conclude with, I just read a book from Pema Chodron, who is a Tibetan nun, American Tibetan nun, who's worked her whole life on bringing peace into the world. So let me just read this, because I think it's really poignant. War and peace start in the hearts of individuals. Strangely enough, even though all beings would like to live in peace, our method for obtaining peace over the generations seems not to be very effective. We seek peace and happiness by going to war. This can occur at the level of our domestic situation, in our relationships with those close to us. Maybe we come home from work and we're tired and we just want some peace. But at home, all hell is breaking loose for one reason or another, and we start yelling. What is our motivation? We want some happiness and ease and peace. But what we do is get even more worked up, and we get everyone else worked up too. So this is a familiar scenario in our homes, in our workplaces, in our communities, even when we're driving our cars. We're just driving along, someone cuts in front of us, and then what? Well, we don't like it, so we roll down our window and scream at them or give them the finger or whatever it is we do. War begins when we harden our hearts, and we harden them easily in minor ways and then in quite serious major ways, such as hatred and prejudice. Whenever we feel uncomfortable, this is still Pema Chodron. She says it's so sad, really, because our motivation in hardening our hearts is to find some sense of ease, some kind of freedom from the distress that we're feeling. She says, someone gave me a poem with a line in it that offers a good definition of peace. Softening what is rigid in our hearts. We can talk about ending war, and we can march for ending war. We can do everything in our power, but war is never going to end as long as our hearts are hardened against each other. So thank you. Have a great day.